Something that we often overlook when we play the violin is how our posture is when we're actually holding our instrument on our shoulder. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking about that very topic, about how your posture may be affecting your sound and your ability to play the violin. I want you to have your violin with you if you can, and what I like to do with you is make sure that your shoulders are completely flat. And oftentimes that I see in beginner violin students, whether they're an adult, whether they're a young age, is that typically most of the time you have a student maybe raising their left shoulder or their right shoulder, especially if they're starting to learn how to play with a violin bow. But it is very important that you have nice soft shoulders, that you are going to be completely flat in the shoulder, because oftentimes when students put the violin on their shoulder, they tend to lift their left shoulder up, or even worse, when they have the ability to play their violin bow, they lift their shoulder up. Actually, yesterday I had a student playing Chrysler's Preludium and Allegro, and I noticed that his shoulder was up here. And he's like, wait, that's not supposed to be like that? I'm like, yes, of course it's not supposed to be that way, because you're actually losing out on sound potential when your shoulder is up. Now, granted, there will be moments where you will find yourself where the left shoulder especially will go up, but we're going to get to those moments, later on in this video. So when you're holding your violin, the violin always comes to the body. The body never comes around the violin. And we are always on the lookout to see if there's any tension in our bodies, and that's one way to kind of see that tension. I like to just bring my violin onto my collarbone and into my shoulder. And if I have a shoulder rest, right now I'm using a Kuhn Bravo, which is a wooden type of shoulder rest. It's one of my favorites that I like to use. I've actually kind of revisited this shoulder rest. So I am looking at making sure that the violin is as horizontal or as flat as I can possibly make it. And it's not going to be completely flat, but it's going to be a lot flatter than you are accustomed to. And the way I like to do that is I like to have a taller shoulder rest on the right side, the taller side, and then a smaller portion of the shoulder rest down here. And in an upcoming video, you'll see me talking about different height adjustments for the shoulder rest and how that could actually impact your playing. But let's get back to the theme of this video, and that comes to posture and the shoulders. So when I'm putting my violin on the shoulder and on the collarbone, you are always wanting to make sure that you have ample space to move your neck around left and right, because oftentimes I see that gap being filled in with my shoulder. With a lot of students, I see that. But as a matter of fact, you want your core to be activated, so that way you have you're standing up straighter, and you're having a good time doing that. And then just naturally, you're gonna find that you will have a little bit more you'll be free of tension. And that's important, because when you're slouching and you're not activating your core muscles, like in your abdomen, you are trying to hover around the violin. And I see many violinists these days having that kind of poor technique, even though technically they're able to go around the violin, no problem. But it causes problems later on in life, and it doesn't increase longevity in your playing. And that's the whole point of this video, is to help you create longevity in your violin playing. I've mentioned this in my previous violin videos if you're a subscriber, but it's very important that you do have these moments of realization where, okay, maybe my left shoulder is a little too high, my right shoulder is a little too high. It all comes down to that. And for me, I have a long neck, and for me, this distance between my collarbone and my neck is quite tall. And in the past, I used to think that, okay, maybe I should have a taller shoulder rest and a tall chin rest, but that caused a lot of problems, to the point where I started feeling, the feeling that when your foot falls asleep and you get the needles in your feet. I was feeling that needle type sensation in my fingers. And at that moment, when I told that to my professor, he was like, okay, that's not, it's definitely a setup issue, but also potentially it could lead to nerve damage when you're playing the violin. So we had to fix that. And for most of my freshman year in college, I actually spent some time just kind of readjusting how I'm supposed to play my violin. That's one of the things that I'm most passionate about, is making sure that students have a proper setup. So for me in general, I like to take a little bit more time in terms of posture and setup in the beginning stages of learning how to play the violin. And students are often discouraged, but I see that in past experience, even within the last year, my students who have been with me for 2.5 years have seen such exponential growth because they no longer have to worry about their posture. They're always just like focusing on their technique now. And as a result of good posture, they're actually sounding a lot better. They're not fatigued. They're not tired. They're able to hold their violin up no problem. And there will be the occasional lesson where I'm talking about tension. Like if you're talking about tension like in your neck, that's like, you can see that there's this strain on your neck here. You don't want to twist your neck too much, but you want to twist it just enough where you feel comfortable with your head. And this exercise right over here, friends, is when my head feels very heavy and it's laying on the chin rest. Now, I want to make a really clear distinction that you have to have a good posture, but when your head goes on the chin rest, you're not gripping the chin rest this way. You are using the natural weight of your head to relax. Yes. And it's all about releasing tension. And when you're focusing on posture and when you're focusing on right shoulder, left shoulder, that plays a big difference. And I also want to add that the shoulder is very much in the region of this entire area. So your shoulder blades, as a matter of fact, are involved in the process. So if you have a tendency to go this way, it all comes down to how your shoulder blades are behaving. So if my shoulder blades and my shoulders are going this way, I want to make sure my shoulder blades are back, so that way I have good core, good foundation here. And you want to make sure that you are like very symmetrical in the back. So like your shoulders are straight, your neck and your spine is aligned. And then you finally put your violin up and you will get the most efficient violin sound, violin technique when you work on this thing we call posture. And posture is definitely one of the most important things that you need to have as a foundation as a violinist. Releasing tension is one of the most foundational things we have to learn as violinists. But if you're wanting to learn more about learning how to release tension or additional violin techniques, you can check out these videos right over here. But if there is also a topic regarding violin playing, violin technique that I haven't talked about yet on the channel, leave your comments down below. I'm always interested in hearing what my audience has to say, and I'm always interested in doing these tutorials to help you become a better violinist. And there's always a topic to talk about, whether it's like a small detail or like a big picture thing. So yeah, let me know in the comment section below. And also be sure to subscribe, because that really helps out the channel to reach people like you and other people who have not found a good source for violin playing. So thanks so much.